My name is Sophia Bennett. I'm 30. On a Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m., I was sitting in my office at the Second Chances Scholarship Program headquarters when my father called. His voice had that specific tremor it always got when my mother had rehearsed what he was supposed to say. "Sophia, we need to talk about the graduation ceremony on Saturday," he began, and I already felt my shoulders tighten. "Lauren's graduating," I said flatly, continuing to work. "Congratulations to her." "That's not, look, she's asked us to make sure you understand something. She doesn't want you there. She specifically said you'll make it about yourself, and Saturday is her day." I stopped typing. My fingers went completely still on the keyboard. "Did Lauren actually say those words to you, Dad? Or is Mom standing right there telling you what to say?" Silence. Then, "Your mother thinks it would be better if I disappeared again?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "I already did that for 15 years, Dad. I'm not sure how much more disappearing you're asking for." "Sophia, don't be difficult. We're trying to keep the peace. You know how sensitive Lauren is." Sensitive, that was always the word. Lauren was sensitive. Lauren needed protection. Lauren's feelings were this delicate, precious thing that the entire family had to revolve around. What I was, difficult, troublemaking, the sick daughter, had never required anyone's protection. "You know what's sensitive?" I said, my voice completely steady now, in that way that used to terrify my family. "Being 15 years old and locked out of your house in a thunderstorm because your sister lied about you stealing from your parents, that's sensitive. You want to talk about sensitive?" "We're not doing this again, Sophia. That was a long time ago. We've apologized." "You've never apologized. You took her word over mine. Every single time. You still do." "We believed what we believed based on the information we had. You believed what you wanted to believe. There's a difference." I could hear my mother in the background. "Tell her she needs to understand that Lauren's future is important right now. Sophia's already successful. She doesn't need this attention." My father's voice got smaller. "Your mother says Lauren has a job offer waiting. Congratulations. She's going to be a financial analyst. She's very proud." Of course she was. Lauren was always the success story. Lauren was the one whose life mattered. And me? I was the before picture, the cautionary tale that made her shine brighter by comparison. "Tell me the truth, Dad," I said quietly. "Is Lauren actually afraid I'll show up, or is this because she's ashamed?" "That's not fair." "Fair?" I felt something crack in my chest. "You want to talk about fair? You want to revisit fair, Dad? I can do that. I have documents. I have emails. I have a letter that was written 15 years ago that explains exactly how fair this family has been to me." The line went silent. Not the silence of him thinking. The silence of him waiting for me to keep going so he could report back to my mother what I'd said. "Sophia, please. Your mother is very upset now." "Good. She should be upset. You all should be. Because on Saturday, at Lauren's graduation ceremony at Albany State University, in front of 300 people, everyone is going to know exactly what happened. And they're going to know that I didn't just walk away from my family. I was thrown out. By all three of you. And the funny thing, Dad, the really funny thing, the only person who ever loved me through that was the one you all would have called a stranger." I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from anger. From something else entirely. From the knowledge that the letter was real. That everything I'd kept locked away was real. That doctor, Abigail Carter, had, in fact, been telling me the truth for 15 years. "I'm going to tell them," I whispered to my empty office. "I'm finally going to tell them." Let me take you back 30 years to a spring afternoon when I was still small enough to believe my family loved me the same way I loved them. I was 5 years old, and I was in my mother's study, watching her organize photo albums. There was a smell in that room, jasmine from the perfume she wore, mixed with the leather of old book spines and something like safety. She was sitting in a mahogany chair with curved arms, the afternoon sun making her hair look almost red, and she was placing photographs into slots with such precision. "Why do we keep all the old ones?" I asked. climbing onto the arm of her chair. She smiled at me. It was the kind of smile that made me think she would always smile at me like that, like I was the most interesting thing in her day. Because memories matter, Sophia, she said. These are proof that we existed, that we were happy. I remember looking at those photographs. Me as a baby, me learning to walk, me in a dress she'd sewn herself, yellow with small flowers, me holding a stuffed rabbit I named George. Am I in all of them? I asked. Almost all, she said. Except this one. She held up a photo of her and my father and a baby I didn't recognize. That's before you were born. That's just us and baby Lauren. I studied that photo. My mother was holding the baby like she was made of spun glass. My father had his arm around both of them. They looked complete. Will you always keep the photos of me? I asked. My mother put her hand on my head and pulled me close. She said something I would hold on to for 30 years, even when she lied about every other thing, even when she chose every other thing. She said, I will always find you, Sophia. No matter what, I will always find you and bring you home. I believed her. I had absolutely no reason not to. By the time I was 15, my mother had already started to change the story. Small things. A family dinner where she'd mentioned to relatives that I was going through a phase, or being emotional, or sometimes I wonder if there's something wrong with her brain. My father would nod along. And Lauren, 2 years younger, had started to understand that if she just planted seeds, our parents would water them. It started with small things, a watch missing from my mother's dresser. Sophia, did you borrow this? She'd ask, and I'd say no, and she'd find it in my backpack anyway. I never figured out how it got there. I was too young to understand that Lauren was putting it there. Too young to know that this was a game, and I was losing. Then the rumors started at school. There was a boy named Ethan. I'd never even spoken to him. But according to Lauren, who told her friend Jessica, who told 3 other people, I'd been seen alone with him at the park, and I was out of control and doing things. The details were vague, but damaging. Deeply damaging. Parents don't want their kids around girls who do things. But the thing that broke everything was the group chat. Lauren screenshotted a conversation that never happened. A chat between me and some girls from school where I supposedly called Lauren worthless and said I was going to make sure nobody liked her. The messages looked real. She'd even mimicked my typing patterns. I didn't learn until years later. I didn't learn until I was sitting in Dr. Carter's office with printouts from a computer forensics expert that she'd created those screenshots in Photoshop. But that morning in October, when my parents called me into the kitchen and showed me what I'd supposedly written, I couldn't prove they were fake. I was just a girl. I was just the girl they'd already decided was difficult. I didn't write these, I said, my face burning so hot I could feel my pulse in my teeth. Mom, I swear to God, I didn't write these. My father was standing by the refrigerator. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in her hand. And Lauren was pretending to do homework, but she kept glancing up at me with this expression that I now recognize as pure satisfaction. We know you did, my mother said. Her voice was so calm. That was the worst part, the calmness, like this was a fact we'd all agreed on, like there was no point in defending myself because the verdict was already written. We don't even know what to do with you anymore, Sophia. This kind of cruelty toward your sister, the stealing, the lies about Ethan. We can't keep covering for you. I'm not lying, I said, and I didn't steal anything. That watch was— Enough, my father said. The word came out like a door slamming. I'm not covering for you anymore, my mother continued. You need to understand that your behavior has consequences. Your sister is sensitive. She's been through enough because of you. Because of me. Because I existed, apparently. Because I'd had the audacity to be born first, to be the practice child, the one they didn't quite know how to love correctly. That was Friday. Saturday morning, there was a storm. My parents told me to leave the house. I said no. I was 15. I was furious and terrified, and I didn't understand yet that they weren't bluffing. My father's hands were shaking when he grabbed my arm. My mother was crying, but it was the kind of crying that was meant to make me feel guilty, like I was hurting them. "If you won't go voluntarily, we'll make you," my mother said. "I cannot have you in this house another day." "You don't even know if I did anything," I said. "You're just taking her word for it." "We believe Lauren," my father said. And those words, "we believe Lauren," they rewired something in my brain that would take 15 years to heal. "We believe our daughter." They packed a small bag with some clothes. It was October. It was raining. My father walked me to the front door. I was still arguing, still trying to make him understand, still believing that if I could just find the right words, he would suddenly see that I was innocent. "Dad, please. I didn't do any of this. I don't know why you won't believe me." He opened the door. The rain was coming down so hard I could barely see the driveway. The temperature had dropped. It felt like winter. "When you're ready to apologize to your sister and show some gratitude for everything we've done for you, you can come back." "I won't apologize for something I didn't do." "Then I guess you're not coming back." He shut the door. The lock clicked. I stood on that porch for maybe 30 seconds, thinking he would open it. That this was a test. That he was teaching me a lesson about consequences, and in a minute he'd feel bad and let me back in. He didn't open the door. I was wearing a hoodie and jeans. No coat, no shoes. Just a small backpack with clothes that smelled like my mother's detergent, and the absolute certainty that my entire life was over. I walked for 2 miles in the rain before I collapsed on the curb of an intersection. I was soaked through. My teeth were chattering so hard I thought my jaw might crack. I remember looking at my hands and not recognizing them. They were blue. Literally blue. I remember thinking that was strange, how a body could stop working like that, how cold could make you feel like you were disappearing. That's when a silver Honda pulled over. Dr. Abigail Carter was a visiting professor at the university. She was driving home from a late department meeting when she saw a kid who looked like she was dying on the side of the road. She told me later that she didn't hesitate. She saw me and something in her just knew to stop. She hit me with the car, not hard, just the bumper, just enough to make me aware of the vehicle's existence, when I didn't move. Then she stopped. She was probably in her early 50s. She had gray streaking through dark hair, and she was wearing a cardigan that smelled like coffee and something expensive. She wrapped me in her jacket and drove me to Mercy General Hospital. She sat with me while I was being examined. She didn't ask too many questions. She just kept saying, "You're safe now. You're going to be okay." That was the moment my life actually began. The next hours were a blur of warmth and blankets and the hospital coming into contact with my parents, who came and picked me up and acted shocked that I'd gotten myself into such a state. But they came. That was the thing I held on to. They came. They were worried. They still loved me. Except they didn't take me home. Instead, they left me at the hospital with Dr. Carter, who had quietly offered to let me stay with her while things cooled down. My parents agreed immediately, too immediately, like they'd been hoping for an exit. "Just until you apologize to your sister," my mother said, kissing the top of my head. "Just until you get yourself together." She never came back to that hospital to get me. Dr. Carter took me to her home, a Victorian house on Sumner Street with gardens that would become my sanctuary. She fed me soup. She showed me to a guest room that she'd apparently prepared beforehand. I found out later she'd adopted me on paper within 2 weeks. She said, "You can stay as long as you need." "My parents will want me back soon," I told her, not believing it even as I said it. "Maybe," she said. "And if they do, we'll figure it out. But if they don't, you have a home here. Do you understand?" I didn't understand. But over the next 15 years, I began to. Dr. Carter didn't try to replace my mother. She didn't badmouth my parents or convince me I should hate them. She just loved me with this quiet, practical kind of devotion that didn't require me to be broken to be worthy of it. I could be angry at her. I could be ungrateful. I could be defensive and suspicious and broken in 100 ways. And she would still make sure I had breakfast. She would still drive me to school. She would still believe in me. "You're going to be okay, Sophia," she told me constantly. "Better than okay. You're going to be extraordinary." I didn't believe her, but I wanted to. I finished high school while living with her. I applied to college. My parents had tried, once, to have me come back for a family dinner, but it was awkward and stiff, and they introduced me to relatives as our exchange student, which was a lie so transparent and cruel that I stopped taking their calls. Dr. Carter drove me to State University. She helped me get my degree in education policy and social justice. She sat in the front row when I graduated summa cum laude. And when I said in my commencement speech that someone saw potential in me when everyone else saw problems, the entire auditorium was crying, and I was looking directly at her. That was 14 years ago. 3 years after that, I created the Second Chances Scholarship Program. The idea came to me fully formed one morning in Dr. Carter's kitchen over coffee. I'd been working as a research coordinator at the university, and I'd started noticing a pattern. There were so many students who were exactly like me, thrown out, abandoned, erased, fighting to survive while trying to get an education. What if we gave them a scholarship? What if we said, "We see you, we believe you, we're going to help you become who you're meant to be"? Dr. Carter believed in the idea immediately. She helped me write the grant proposals. She introduced me to people who could help fund it. She became my co-director, even though she was still teaching full-time. We started with 5 scholarships the first year. Now we have $200,000 in funding across 10 universities. We've helped 47 students, 47 young people who were just like me, get a second chance at their lives. And my parents watched from a distance the entire time. They saw the articles about the program. They watched my keynote speech at the National Education Conference go viral. They saw the news segment about how I'd transformed from a troubled foster kid, a phrase that made me furious every time, into a director of a nonprofit that was changing lives. And they tried to come back. The emails started 2 years ago. Carefully worded apologies, mentions of how proud they were, invitations to Sunday dinners. They'd made a mistake, they said. They'd believed Lauren too easily. They wanted to rebuild their relationship with me. I ignored every message. Then came the social media posts, pictures of my mother with her friends, casual mentions of me. "My daughter is doing such important work," she'd write, like we hadn't lost 15 years. Like I hadn't spent my 15th birthday huddled under Dr. Carter's kitchen table, having a panic attack because I was afraid to go to school. And through it all, Lauren stayed silent. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge what she'd done. She just moved forward with her life, her confidence bolstered by the knowledge that she'd gotten away with it. She went to Albany State University. She got good grades. She became the golden child in perpetuity, until her graduation. Dr. Carter died on March 14th, not suddenly. She'd been sick for months, but she'd hidden it from me. She said she didn't want me to worry. She said she wanted to see me thrive without the weight of her mortality on my shoulders. I was in her office when she died, at the hospital, and she was holding a letter. "Give this to my lawyer," she whispered. "When the time is right, you'll know when." I took the letter. It was sealed. It had my name on the front, in her careful handwriting. "Dr. Carter," I started, but she squeezed my hand. "Not yet," she said. "Promise me you won't open it yet." "When?" I asked. "You'll know. When they finally push you, when they finally show you who they really are, you'll know." She died 6 hours later. I kept the letter in my desk drawer at work. I didn't open it. I honored her last request. I grieved her in the way grief demands, completely and without mercy. And I waited. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I waited. The email came from my father on a Tuesday. The subject line read, Lauren's big day, family celebration. Sophia, Lauren's graduation ceremony is this Saturday at 2 p.m. at Albany State University's main auditorium. We're all so proud of her. She's been accepted for a junior financial analyst position at Meridian Capital Group. This is a huge opportunity. We'd like you to be there. It would mean a lot to Lauren if the whole family was present. Your mother has already started planning the dinner afterward. We're hoping you'll join us. Your mother has asked me to tell you that she's sorry about the past. We both are. We'd like to move forward. Hope to see you Saturday. Dad. I read it 3 times. I didn't respond immediately. I just sat at my desk and thought about how my parents measured time. How could they possibly think that an email about moving forward was going to erase 15 years of silence? 15 years of declaring me dead to their friends, of taking Lauren's side, of watching my success from a distance, and only reaching out now because it would look good in family photos. But that's when I remembered Dr. Carter's words. When they finally push you, when they finally show you who they really are. This was the push. This was them finally revealing their true calculation. They weren't apologizing because they were sorry. They were apologizing because it was easier, because keeping me away was becoming complicated. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the letter. My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you while I was still here to do it. I tried. But your parents don't respond to reason. They only respond to consequences they can see in black and white. Do you remember what I told you that first night at the hospital? I said, I will always find you and bring you home. Your mother said that to you when you were 5. But she was lying. I meant it. I've meant it every single day. I want you to know something important. I've been gathering evidence for 7 years. I'm not being melodramatic. I'm not being paranoid. I'm being realistic about who your family is. When they thought you were gone, when they thought they'd succeeded in erasing you, they got careless. They talked. They confessed things to friends. They left digital trails. Inside this envelope, you'll find 1. A certified letter from a clinical psychologist documenting Lauren's history of fabricating stories and manipulating authority figures. I had her evaluated years ago. With your mother's written permission, she thought I was diagnosing a learning disability. The diagnosis was borderline personality disorder with narcissistic traits. She's a predator, Sophia. Not because she's evil, but because she's broken, and she learned that lies could control her world. 2. Screenshots of your mother's emails to her sister, written in 2012, where she says, I'm not sure I made the right choice sending Sophia away. But Lauren was so upset, and I didn't know what else to do. Tom didn't want to deal with the conflict. Your mother knew the truth. She knew, and she chose comfort over her daughter. 3. Hospital records from October 18, 2009, the night they threw you out, showing that you were hypothermic with a core temperature of 94.2 degrees. A few more hours and you would have had complications. Permanent ones. 4. A trust document establishing a fund in your name, $340,000. It was funded through my own estate and through donations from people who knew your story, colleagues, friends, people who believed in your potential. 5. The original incident reports from the police, because yes, your father called the police that night and reported you as a missing juvenile. He lied and said you'd run away. He didn't tell them he'd thrown you out. This will be very important evidence if you need it. 6. Emails from Meridian Capital Group documenting Lauren's performance issues, her dishonesty with clients, and her termination from her previous 2 positions for similar reasons. She's a serial liar, Sophia, just like your mother. Do not show this to anyone, not your parents, not your sister, not even your closest friends. Wait until the right moment. My attorney, Richard Whitmore, has the original documents locked in a safe deposit box. His office is at 847 Prospect Avenue, Suite 300. He's been waiting for you to call. I need you to understand something. This isn't about revenge. Revenge would require that you care about hurting them. But you don't. You've already built a beautiful life without them. What this is about is truth. They spent 15 years lying. They spent 15 years rewriting history. They made you invisible. It's time for you to be visible. I will always find you, Sophia, even from beyond. I will always find you and bring you home. All my love. Dr. Abigail Carter, Checkham. I read that letter sitting in my office, alone, with the door locked. Then I read it again. Then I picked up the phone and called Richard Whitmore. "Ms. Bennett," he said when he heard my voice. "I've been waiting for this call for 18 months. I booked the appointment for Friday morning. I didn't tell anyone, not my colleagues, not the other director of the Second Chances program, not my therapist. I just went to an address on Prospect Avenue and walked into an office that smelled like old books and leather. Richard Whitmore was exactly how Dr. Carter had described him in conversations I'd forgotten I'd listened to. Gray-haired, patient, kind in a way that suggested he'd seen people at their worst and still believed in their best. He showed me the trust documents. He showed me the clinical evaluation. He showed me the police reports. He showed me the emails from my mother's sister, my Aunt Patricia, where she'd written back, "You made your bed with Lauren. Now you have to lie in it, but don't expect Sophia to forgive you." And then he showed me something else. "Dr. Carter came to me with this 3 weeks before she died," he said, sliding a photograph across his desk. It was a school photo of Lauren. She was maybe 12, and on the back, in Dr. Carter's handwriting, was a date, October 17th, 2009, the day before they threw me out. "That's the day before the incident," he said. "Do you know what this photograph is?" I shook my head. "It's evidence that Lauren photographed her own injuries, the ones she claimed you caused. Dr. Carter had a colleague, a forensic photographer, analyze the photograph. The bruising pattern is consistent with self-infliction. She hit herself repeatedly in the same locations to create trauma. She documented it." I stared at the photograph, at my sister's calculated smile, at the way she'd positioned herself in the photo, showing off her own cruelty like it was a prize. "She's been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder," Richard continued. "She's been in therapy, but she's never apologized, and your parents have never pressed her to." "What do I do with all of this?" I asked. "You wait," he said. "For now, you wait. And you know the truth. That's the most powerful thing." Dr. Carter believed that when the moment came, you would know what to do with it. I left his office at 11:30 a.m. on a Friday morning. I went back to work. I processed scholarship applications. I mentored a student who was struggling with her thesis. I ate lunch at my desk, and I waited. The phone call came 3 days later on the morning of Lauren's graduation. "Sophia, we really need you to reconsider," my father said, his voice tight. "Lauren is very upset that you might show up and ruin her day." "Dad," I said, and my voice was completely calm, which was interesting because my hands were shaking. "I wasn't planning on showing up until you called me and asked me not to." "Well, she doesn't want you there. She's worried that I'll what? Expose her? Embarrass her?" Silence. "Has she told you what she did to me?" I asked. "We've been over this, Sophia. It was a long time ago. Everyone's moved on. Can't you just move on?" "I have moved on. That's the problem. I moved on, and I succeeded, and I became someone important without your help, without any of you. And now you want me to come to Lauren's graduation and pretend I'm part of a family that tried to erase me from existence. That's not fair." "Fair?" I felt something crystallize inside me. "Let me tell you what's fair. What's fair is that I show up today, and I sit in that auditorium. And when Lauren finishes crossing the stage, when she's feeling perfect and victorious, and like she finally has everything she wanted, what's fair is that everyone in that room knows the truth." "Sophia, I'm begging you, don't do this." "Don't do what, Dad? Don't tell the truth?" "Your mother is very upset." "Good. She should be upset, because at 2 p.m., in front of 300 people, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what happened. And I'm going to make sure they know that a 15-year-old girl was thrown out of her house in a thunderstorm because her sister is a predator and her parents are cowards. I hung up. Then I picked up the phone and called the auditorium. I asked for the person in charge of the graduation ceremony. It took 4 transfers, but I got the director. My name is Sophia Bennett, I said. My sister is graduating today, and I'm a keynote speaker who'd like to address the graduates before they're dismissed. There was a pause. Who's asking you? I'm a director of the Second Chances Scholarship Program. I have a degree in education policy, and I have a story that every person at this graduation needs to hear. 20 minutes later, it was confirmed I would speak, right before the graduates were dismissed. I hung up the phone and sat in silence. Then I drove to Albany State University. The auditorium was enormous, cathedral-level ceilings, thousands of red velvet seats, a stage that looked bigger than my apartment. Families were already flooding in. I could see parents trying to find the right seating area. I could see my parents, my mother in a blue dress that must have cost $300, my father in a suit that didn't fit him quite right anymore. They looked older, they looked tired, and I felt absolutely nothing. I went backstage. The graduation director, a woman named Patricia, was surprised to see me, but not unwelcoming. "You're definitely the daughter?" she asked. "I'm definitely the daughter. Are you okay with this?" "If you've got something to say, this is the place to say it," she said. "But you've got 10 minutes. Make them count." I nodded. I watched from backstage as the ceremony began. I watched Lauren walk across the stage. She was crying. She looked happy. She looked like someone who'd gotten away with everything, which I suppose she had. But not anymore. The graduates were given their diplomas. They were shifted off the stage. And then Patricia walked to the microphone. "Before we dismiss our new graduates, we have a special speaker. Sophia Bennett is a director of the Second Chances Scholarship Program, which has awarded over $200,000 to students facing adversity. She's here to share a few words." I walked to that stage. The auditorium had maybe 1,000 people in it now. Graduates, families, faculty, administrators. I could see my parents' faces change when they recognized me. I could see Lauren standing to the side, her face going white. I stepped to the microphone. "My name is Sophia Bennett," I said. My voice was steady. "And I'm here to tell you about the girl I used to be." I could see my father's hands starting to shake from here. "At 15 years old," I continued, "I was told that I was sick, old, that I was broken, that I was a burden on my family. I was accused of things I didn't do. I was shown evidence that wasn't real. I was gaslit by people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. And then I was thrown out of my house in a thunderstorm. Literally." October 18th, 2009. I was locked outside during a hypothermia-inducing storm because my sister lied about me, and my parents chose to believe her. The auditorium was completely silent now. Not the respectful silence of people listening. The stunned silence of people who were understanding for the first time that they'd been living in a lie. "I was 15, I said. "I had nowhere to go. I had no resources. I had no family. But someone saw potential in me when everyone else saw problems. Someone took me in. Someone believed in me. And I survived." I pulled out Dr. Carter's letter. I held it up. "This is a letter from the person who saved my life. She's gone now. But before she died, she gave me something. She gave me the truth. She gave me documentation. She gave me evidence. And she told me that when the moment came, I would know what to do with it." I looked directly at my parents. My father's eyes were closed. My mother was standing up, trying to leave. "The moment came," I said, "because my sister's graduation became a platform for the family to pretend everything was fine, to act like they'd never failed me, to act like they'd ever believed in me. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't go away just because you ignore it. It doesn't disappear because you delete the photo. It doesn't vanish because you tell people that I died. I could see Lauren trying to move toward the exit. Lauren Bennett, I said, and her entire body froze. You fabricated accusations against me. You created fake evidence. You manipulated our parents into believing your lies. You physically injured yourself and blamed me. And then you watched as a 15-year-old girl was thrown into a thunderstorm to protect your reputation. That's not true, Lauren said. Her voice was high and panicked. Mom, Dad, that's not true. It is true, I said calmly. I have a clinical evaluation completed by Dr. Margaret Sullivan that documents your borderline personality disorder. I have photographs that you took of your own injuries before blaming them on me. I have emails from Mom to her sister Patricia, where she admits that she knew she was wrong to throw me out, but that she was afraid of conflict. And I have police records showing that your father called me in as a missing runaway when he actually threw me out himself. The auditorium was in complete chaos now. People were talking, gasping, standing up. My mother had her hand over her mouth. My father looked like he'd been shot. I'm not here to destroy anyone, I said, and my voice cut through the noise. I'm here for the graduates. I'm here for the students who are about to walk out of this auditorium thinking that they have to be perfect, or their family will throw them away. I'm here to say, that's a lie. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to find people who will believe in you when your own family doesn't. I looked directly at the graduates. I'm the Second Chances Scholarship Program. I exist because I was thrown away. 47 of your classmates have been supported by this program. 47 young people who were told they weren't good enough have been given a second chance. And every single one of them is going to have more success, more happiness, and more fulfillment than the people who abandoned them. I stepped back from the microphone. Congratulations to the class of 2024, I said. The applause started slowly. Then it became thunderous. I watched as some students started standing, then families, then faculty members. And the people who didn't applaud, Lauren, my parents, their friends, they just sat in silence, watching their entire reputation collapse in real time. I walked off stage. The next 48 hours were chaos. News outlets picked up the story. The Washington Post ran a headline, Doctor's Daughter Exposes Family Deception at Graduation Ceremony. CNN wanted an interview. My Instagram followers jumped from 15,000 to 200,000 in 2 days. My mother tried to call. My father sent emails apologizing. Lauren had a nervous breakdown and admitted to everything in a therapy session that her therapist then reported to authorities. The police opened a cold case investigation into what happened on October 18, 2009. It was determined that throwing a minor out of a house constituted child abandonment and reckless endangerment. My parents faced legal consequences. Meridian Capital Group fired Lauren after corporate investigators found evidence of her fraudulent behavior with clients. And me? I went back to work. I processed scholarship applications. I mentored students. I helped change lives. 3 weeks later, I visited Dr. Carter's grave. I brought flowers. I sat there for an hour and told her everything. I told her about the letter. I told her about the graduation. I told her that the truth had been more powerful than I'd imagined. You saved me, I whispered. Not just by taking me in, by believing that someday I'd be strong enough to stand on that stage and tell the truth. I didn't feel like I'd won anything, but I felt like I'd finally stopped running. 6 months later, I'm standing in my own apartment, a one-bedroom in the city with floor-to-ceiling windows and a photograph of Dr. Carter on my desk. The scholarship program now has $300,000 in funding. We're expanding to 15 universities. I've been offered a book deal. I've been asked to speak at the UN. But the thing I'm most proud of is a letter I got last week from a student named Marcus. Dear Sophia, I want to thank you for believing in me. When I got the Second Chances Scholarship, I'd already been thrown out by my family 3 times. I thought I was unfixable, but you taught me that being thrown away doesn't define you. Surviving it does. I just got accepted to graduate school. You're the first person I wanted to tell. Thank you for being brave enough to tell your story. It gave me permission to tell mine. Marcus, I've read that letter maybe 30 times. My parents have tried to reach out. They've written letters apologizing. They've asked for forgiveness. They've asked if we could move forward. And I've decided something. Forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about refusing to let them live in my head anymore. I'm not angry at them. I'm just done. I visit Dr. Carter's grave every month. I bring flowers. I tell her about the students we're helping. I remind myself that she was right. I will always be found. Not because my family finally realized their mistake, but because I found myself. If you're watching this, and your family has written you off, let me tell you something. The story doesn't end with their forgiveness. It ends with your survival. It ends with you building a life so beautiful and purposeful that their absence becomes insignificant. Silence isn't peace. Silence is what allows liars to keep lying. Silence is what my parents purchased by throwing me out. And I broke that silence on a stage in front of 1,000 people. You don't need anyone's permission to have value, but you do need to give yourself permission to walk away from people who are determined to convince you that you don't. I walked away, and I survived, and then I thrived. If you've ever had someone try to erase you, or gaslight you, or make you believe their lies instead of your truth, type in the comments, I found myself. Or if you're still in the process, type, I'm finding myself. Both are brave, both are valid, both will eventually lead you to the same place I am now. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Stories about people who survived. Stories about people who fought back. Stories about people who refused to stay silent. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that truth matters.